Hi, Nikki Bevan here. It's been a little while since I posted a video. We've had a lovely holiday. Been off with my babies, which is always nice. So I've spoke to you about a bit about relationships. So we covered emotional childhood versus emotional adulthood, and recognizing when you're taking responsibility for yourself or when you're actually giving responsibility to someone else. One's very powerful, one's very powerless. Then we spoke about manuals, so how you will have an expectation on somebody to behave a certain way, and if they don't behave that certain way, then we make it mean something about us. So actually dropping all of our manuals for people is a really great thing to do for ourselves. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is setting boundaries. So this is another thing that you can do within relationships that really heightens the quality of that relationship. So you will know somebody that does something on a regular basis that you don't like, but you've never really addressed it. And when they do it, you just get really irritated and really annoyed and really agitated at it. So when we set a boundary with somebody, what we're actually saying, and this is an emotional boundary. So in the physical world, if someone that we didn't know were to come onto our property, we would say to them, you've overstepped the boundary. If you don't leave, I'm going to call the police. Or if someone's shouting and yelling and maybe hitting you, you're going to say, right, if you don't stop doing that, I'm going to call the police, or something like that. We all have physical boundaries in our life. Emotional boundaries are exactly the same. An emotional boundary is something you set for yourself as a way of controlling you. So it's not about trying to control the other person. Remember that other humans get to behave however they want to behave. When we set a boundary, this is our way of controlling us. So it could sound something like, maybe you've got a manager that maybe could be a little bit belittling to you at times. So you could say to them, look, if you carry on talking to me in that way, I am going to leave the room. So this isn't a way of controlling their behaviour, but it is giving them the opportunity to adjust what they're doing. So it could be something like, so with your children, for example, if you don't put your shoes on, I am going to ... That will be the consequence, and it's a way of controlling you. So when we set a boundary, we really want to come from a place of love. If you're coming from a place of frustration and irritation, that boundary isn't going to be effective. But if you're coming from a place of love and you're accepting that other person gets to choose however they want to behave, but if they behave that way, this is what you are going to do. So it's a way of controlling your behaviour, not trying to control other people, because nobody likes to be controlled. Nobody likes to be manipulated. But you can control you, and you can manipulate yourself so that you show up as the best version of yourself. So a boundary is about making a request of somebody, and if they don't follow through on that request, which they don't have to do because they are human and they have freedom of choice just like you, but if they don't do that, this is what I'm going to do. So for example, it could be someone smoking in your house. You could say to somebody, if you don't stop smoking, I'm going to ask you to leave. Perfectly acceptable. If you don't stop shouting at me, I am going to leave the room. Perfectly acceptable. They can still carry on shouting at you, but if they do, you're going to leave the room. And that is honouring yourself and loving yourself enough to control yourself out of that situation. So what a boundary isn't is sounds like this. I wish my husband would take the rubbish out a bit more. I wish my wife would be more romantic. I would like my boss to give me more praise. I want my friends to call me back when I call them. Like they sound like justified requests, but that's not a boundary issue. And your happiness doesn't depend on someone following through on that request. So if you were doing this in the workplace, for example, and you think your boss should give you more praise, well, that's just your expectations. That's your manual for how your boss should behave. You can drop your manual. But if your manager is talking to you in a manner that you don't like, you are well within your rights to say, if you continue to talk to me in that way, I am going to leave the room. If you then continue to talk to me in this way, I'm going to go and speak to HR so that we can resolve it a different way. Perfectly acceptable. You don't need to do it from a place of frustration or anger. You can completely set that boundaries from a place of calm and from a place of control. So a boundary isn't an ultimatum for somebody. It is not a way of manipulating somebody's behaviour, because that's not pleasant, but it is a way of controlling us. So if you're intrigued to learn more about boundaries, we cover this in my programme, so I go into it a lot more detail in my lessons to you, and of course we discuss it in your one-to-one sessions as well. So if a boundary is something that I actually think, oh, that could really benefit my life, and boundaries absolutely do benefit you in your life, then get in touch. Send me one little message. That's all it takes, and we can set up a free discovery session to see how we fit together and how my program can benefit you. I believe 100% that you have it in your control to be the person you want to be. And it would be my honour to support you on that journey. So get in touch. There's nothing you need to wait for. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.